Today, our story is in this box. And our story is such a big story that it's gonna take 3 Sundays to hear it. Today, we'll hear the first part of this story. Now, this story is called The Greatest Parable. And this box does look like a parable box. It's gold, like the parable boxes, but it's a different shape. It's a triangle instead of a square. I wonder why that is. Also, like the stories we hear from the Bible, it has a symbol on the front of it. And this box has a large purple cross, and it also has 4 smaller purple crosses. The large cross, the purple cross, reminds us of Easter. And the 4 smaller crosses are for the 4 saints that gave us the Gospels that tell us about the life of Jesus. Now, this is a very curious box. It's different from everything else, although it's somewhat similar, but it is different. And before we get started with our story, we need to hear a prologue. A prologue is something that comes before a story. It's about the story, but it needs to come before the story to help you get ready for the story. And so this is our prologue. It comes from the Gospel of John. Now, in the beginning was the Word. And this is the Word that all the words in the Gospel are about. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. God spoke everything that is in the world into being. And yet God is difficult to find sometimes in the world. And I want you to think about this. Think about my words. When I say my words, can you see them? No. But are they with us? Yes, they are. Now, no one has ever seen God. So the Word became flesh. The Word became a person and lived among us, lived in truth and grace to show us how to be children of God. The Word was born of the Mother Mary and came into the world. Now this is what happened next. This shows us a picture of the Mother Mary, and this is the angel Gabriel, full of light, and he's come to speak to Mary. And it is like hearing from God. It is God speaking to Mary, because an angel is a messenger of God. And Gabriel told Mary that she would have a special child, the Son of God. And God overshadowed Mary, and she knew that this was very special. And we call this visit from the Gabriel angel to the Mother Mary the Annunciation, when Mary knew she would have a special baby. Many years later, when the baby grew up and was a man, it was the man Jesus. And Jesus took 3 of his disciples up a mountain. And we see them here. In the background, Jesus in the center is with two other men, Moses and Elijah. Now Moses and Elijah lived many hundreds of years before Jesus. Now the disciples, Peter, James, and James' brother John, could see this, could see Moses and Elijah with Jesus. And then they heard a cloud came over and overshadowed them and said, "This is my son, my beloved." And when the disciples heard this voice, they were so afraid that they got down on the ground, bent down and hid their faces. And Jesus came over and touched them and said, "Do not be afraid." Now we call this the Transfiguration. Jesus was changed. He did not look different, but after his discussion with Elijah and Moses, he was changed. And this is the Transfiguration. And when the disciples looked up, they only saw Jesus. They no longer saw Moses and Elijah. And then they went down the mountain and made their way to Jerusalem. Jesus and his disciples went to Jerusalem for the last time. And on that Friday, Jesus died for us on the cross. And Jesus' friends, the women and men who were close to him, took him to a tomb for burial. And a large stone was placed outside the tomb to cover the entrance to the tomb, to protect his body in there. And on that Saturday, after he died, a great shadow, a great cloud came over, a darkness overshadowed the world. And then on Sunday, when the women and men who were Jesus' friends went to get his body to prepare it for burial, the stone had been moved away from the entrance, and Jesus' body was no longer in the tomb. Jesus had risen from the dead. And so this is the first part of our parable, the first part of the greatest parable. Jesus came to Mary. Jesus and God came to Mary. Jesus and God came to the disciples. And after his death, Jesus came to the world. Jesus came to all of us. And so that is the first part of the greatest parable.